G'day guys and welcome to the Hunters Campfire. Pull up a chair, get comfortable and enjoy some great company with Mark, Ian and Jono. Thanks to our friends at SSAA and Beretta Australia, we're here to help you make the most of everything you love about hunting, shooting and the great outdoors.
Good evening guys, tonight is a Hunters Campfire special with Mark being joined by Robert Borsak Jr., who's the Director of the State Fishers and Farmers Party, New South Wales, and the son of the Honourable Robert Borsak, MLC. Enjoy.
And good evening, Robert. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very well indeed. And I do like orange. Orange is
Blaze, mate. It's Blaze.
Well, it's Dutch. I think it's the Dutch in me. I just like orange. I notice I have a lot of orange things, so I'm jealous of that T-shirt. It's a very cool
I'm also
colour.
a quarter Dutch, and that's where I think my ginger beard comes from.
Yeah, that's it. No, orange. I like orange.
You know why they call it orange? Sorry, do you know why the Dutch team wears orange?
No.
Really?
Other than it's the national colour, but...
Yeah. Well, why is it the national colour? That's the question.
Oh, okay. I don't know why it's the national colour, no.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
other than William of Orange, I know that.
Exactly, the royal family.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right. I thought, okay, sure.
Yeah. It wasn't that interesting.
I thought, something I missed out. No, William of Orange.
No. Yeah.
Who, I believe, fought at Waterloo.
He did, and I saw the big portrait there in the Louvre of when he got shot and he survived.
Mm.
Yeah, and the famous portrait, they're dragging him off at the end.
So for those listening, sorry for the boring Dutch history, but
not that bad. It's all right.
I think it's. I could talk about it all day. But so what we want to discuss tonight is a couple of happenings in around the bill. But before we jump into that, let's treat this as a campfire. So, Robert, do you want to introduce yourself to listeners? I know that you've got a famous surname, but a lot of people might not know who you are.
Yeah, I've got a famous first name too, or maybe it's infamous. But
yeah,
so I'm Robert Borsak Jr., son of Robert Borsak, who's the member of the Legislative Council in New South Wales. Recently, in April this year, I became the State Director of the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party in New South Wales. I'm really enjoying the role. I came from a very different background. But basically, I grew up in the party. I remember as a boy being there at the party launch at Parramatta Bowling Club back in the day with John Tingle. And the reason I remember it so well is because my twin brother sucked on too many helium balloons and passed out. He went boom like that. I remember it well because at the end my mum lost her thing, and then ever since then he was never allowed to muck around with helium balloons. So yeah, so I've pretty much been on a polling booth every election my entire life, hanging around the Shooters Party and then the Shooters and Fishers Party and then Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. I've been, I'm a Borsak, so hunting's in my DNA. Politics is also in my DNA because I'm a Borsak. So now I'm lucky enough to work in two of my favorite things and talk about two of my favorite things all the time. And yeah, we've made a lot of strides in the last few months, starting the job, and then after a month we had our bill come in. That was fantastic. I'm very, very happy to be fighting this battle on the front line this time, because previously, before I was in this role, I was on the executive of the party. So I was the deputy chair of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party for about 7 years before I 6 or 7 years before I got in to this role. Yeah, look, there was an opportunity to get into this role, and it's a very niche role because it definitely melds, our outdoor culture with the politics side, running the administration of the party, sitting in an office all the time, doing all the boring politics stuff. It's not as exciting as Parliament House, which doesn't sound very exciting to a lot of people, but party administration is even less exciting. But yeah, so it was very hard to find people in that kind of role. So I thought, look, I want to give my all to this. I want to get behind it. So I threw my hat in the ring for the job. And Brian Boyle, as you know, he was the acting state director at the time, and he absolutely put us all through the ringer to get the job. And it was the hardest job I'd ever had to get in my life. I worked in the public service for 10 years, and it was much harder than any public service roles, and the wheels move very slow on those roles. But yeah, I'm happy to be here now. I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying meeting all kinds of cool people. Meeting you guys down at that meeting with the Hellenic boys, that was fantastic. So now I get to go around and talk about hunting all the time, which is unreal.
I think we should give that some context. So you and and Ian and myself, we all met at the Hellenic Hunters when we went down for the presentation. Yeah. We actually, oddly enough, shows the 6 degrees of separation. Brian Boyle was the person who introduced us to the property in Northern Territory, Hunt Buffalo, which we've literally just come back from.
Yeah.
So back when we hunted there, I think it was in 2023, the first time we hunted with Brian, and he introduced us as a property owner. We've gone back there twice now, but at that particular event, we were there sitting in the back waiting to get called up, and you were speaking, and in front of us was this kind of disheveled dude with a cap on that we went, hey, that's one of our caps. And sure enough, it was Brian. And we went, hey, Brian. And so it was a really interesting coming together of a lot of people. I thought that was really great. Yeah. But before we jump into the bill, because, that is the hot topic, if you don't mind, I want to just explore a couple of other things before we get there. And you made some reference to it just then. We've spoken. So last week, for instance, we spoke with Tom Kenyon, who's the CEO of SSAA Inc. Yep. And Tom was actually a minister in the South Australian government for a period of time. And, he gave, I suppose, some insight into what it was to actually be involved in politics as a minister. And I was thinking about this today. Can you give us some insight into how it looked for your point of view? Because, you're in it, but not in it as an elected official. You were just it was just there around you. What was it like being, a young person and growing up in that environment?
Well, I learned from a very young age. So I was 11 when Port Arthur happened. And, the party was formed in 95, and that all happened in 96. So the party was already around. The only reason I wasn't, because they did a big march, they did a big protest in the city after they said basically, they're coming for us. The only reason I wasn't there was because Dad said I had to go to school. But it was at that age that I realized that, and also I was growing up in Sydney, and there wasn't many hunters around. Like Robert Senior came from the Safari Club International side, so they had very much international hunting club sort of thing. It was very much like they were a chapter of the Americans. So it was a bit more of your people like my father, who were accountants, businessmen, doctors, lawyers. They were the kind of guys that were hunters. They were kind of urbanized hunters. So we were always, fish out of water, pretty much living in the city. Then after Port Arthur happened, we kind of became persona non grata because the response to that was so dramatic, where, they pretty much vilified everyone. And then ever since then, if you want to make any kind of ground back, then you want Port Arthur to happen again, basically, because that's always the argument. But there's been no massacres. That's always the argument. So because I grew up in an environment that hunting was bad, being a kid and talking about, because, growing up, we didn't go to beach resorts. We didn't go to fancy restaurants. We went to the bush. That's what we did. Like when I was 7, 8, 9, growing up, my dad was really into fallow, like for the first 20 years of his hunting life. So we were at the fallow properties every single school holidays, And then as we got older, he wanted to start hitting the reds. So we're up in the Brisbane Valley with Clark McGee doing the ridge scheme back then when it got started. So we were doing that all the time. So I was spending all of my holidays in the bush. So that was what I grew up doing. So for me, it was normal. I didn't know any different. And yes, we had family that would go to resorts and stuff like that, but that wasn't the main part of my leisure time with my family. And even when we weren't hunting, my parents were still big into scouts. My mum's still a scout leader. Even now, she's been doing it for 50 odd years. So I was always in the bush in some sort of, way or another. So I was always used to that. And then, once other kids were talking about what they were doing and their interests, and, I'd always be talking about it, that I was into hunting and I was into those sorts of things. Being called a murderer as a little kid by other kids, kids don't know any different. And I could never put 2 and 2 together in my mind because I was just a kid, like, why don't they understand how much fun it is, how good it is? And it wasn't until I would meet kids that were, were from the bush or had properties or had some kind of thing, some sort of other connection where they'd done it before, did I start realizing, oh, no, these guys get it. these guys get it, but most of my friends don't get it. So I also have a father who doesn't give a toss what anyone else thinks about him. So that helps because he never had to really worry about, oh, Dad, don't you worry about this. He's like, no, this is the best thing ever. This is fun. What do you mean? Like, no, you shouldn't be ashamed of this. You shouldn't be worried about what anyone else says because it's great. And he wasn't lying. It was great. It was fun. You know, I went on my first tar hunt when I was 12, you know, in New Zealand. And then we went again when I was 13 and then 14. So I was climbing up and down, you know, mountains in New Zealand as a little kid with no waterproof boots. You know, it was hell in the snow with old Stan over there in the South Island. But and then, you know, by the time I was 16, Dad was like, you know, he was hunting a bit of North America back then. So he brought us on a trip to him. Actually, when the Sydney Olympics was on, he took us to Canada when the opening ceremony was on. So we're kind of, everyone was flying into Sydney and we were flying out. So I went and did a trip over there, and I shot a beautiful bull elk over there in British Columbia. My brother shot a black bear and a caribou, and we had the best time ever. Like I was never jealous of anyone, you know, that I was missing out or the people didn't like it. And then I was just kind of known as that kid. And then, you know, once teenagers start maturing and boys start being a bit more boyish, everyone suddenly likes what you're doing. Oh, really? So you do that? So you go hunting, and then you form your friends around that, and then obviously. In my 20s, I drifted away from that a bit, you know, because you tend to spend time doing other dumb things that young men do.
Yeah.
And then, you know, now I came back to it about late 20s. I came back to it and I just, jumped in a big way. But yeah, growing up, look, it never really got to me because something that was really, really turned it into a bit of a pressure cooker when it came to forming your own opinions and learning to talk your way out of situations or finding an angle on things was being somewhat vilified or being, you know, teased about hunting or mocked about hunting, because now I know how to talk my way around everything. And when people would say to me, are you left wing or right wing as you got older? I'm like, well, both major parties, they completely disowned what I love doing the best.
Yeah.
So I don't resonate with either party. So from a very young age, I knew that there were no major parties that looked after me. And, you know, both of them equally vilified what I did as my favorite thing. You know, going out hunting was seen as something that was weird. And I was just saying today, our last great raging right-winger prime minister that we had was Tony Abbott. And the bloke rode his bloody push bike with his mates in his Lycra. That's your raging right-winger model Australian male?
I think it's more, I think, I don't want to take anything from your story. I think it's fantastic. But I think if there is a term or a series of terms that are becoming less and less relevant, it's left wing and right wing.
Yeah,
that's
and
maybe 1970s where either you wore a blue shirt or a white shirt to work. You know, I think, or as my friend used to say, you could tell what job it is when you had a shower. Did you have a shower before you went to work or after work type thing? You know? And I think once upon a time there was some clarity there, but those things have gone. And I think
I was just going to say, so we're always hunting, but if I wasn't hunting, we're always at hunting meetings, and we go to the SCI show every year out at Penrith. You know, for a few years, they had huge shows. SCI would do it on their own, and then they joined up with the SSAA and the P and hunters out there, and they were the best times of my life. Like I remember going out there and spending the weekend at Penrith Panthers, and we had the run of the place. It was fantastic, you know, and we go in and out of the booths and muck around and see everyone. And I remember when I'd see Clark McGee there, right? Clark McGee used to show up with his sleeves rolled right up, with his giant big white cowboy hat on, and he had this big smile with this missing tooth. And I just remember looking at him just going, he was like a superhero to me, because he was a deer farmer. He was out in the bush all the time. He was living the life. And he was always the one that I looked at and was like, I love Clark. And then I was lucky enough on some of those ridge hunts. Clark dragged me around a few times hunting with him, and I couldn't keep up with him. And I was a teenager that was playing a lot of sport. Like I was, you know, playing top grade rugby, top grade basketball, and I couldn't keep up with him. And I was always just like, that's what I want to be like. That's what I want to do. And then I just got kind of stuck in the city, and, you know, the rest of the noise caught up. But yeah, like I was, you know, sitting around at my dad's feet, playing with whatever while they're doing hunting meetings. It had always been that way. Back in the day, they used to have their SCI meetings out at the German-Austrian club out in Cabramatta. And I always remember going there because there was one little meeting room right at the top of the club where they had some old heads, and some of them were from our house that obviously they didn't have room. So he took them to the club and had them up there. So I'd always been around hunting clubs, and it's that weird thing you get as a kid when your parents are talking you know they're talking, but you don't know what they're talking about. And it was always Dad talking about hunting. And then it was when I was a bit older, Robert Brown was around because Brownie was in the club as well, but he was also in the ADA and he was also involved with the party. So it was always, all right, now Uncle Brownie's there talking as well, but I don't know what they're talking about because I'm too young to understand.
Yeah.
And then I finally started getting into it and understanding more as I got older. And now I'm like, yeah, I understand this all now. And I love what they're talking about. Like I had my hunting club meeting on the weekend and we're just talking about politics and hunting. And because unfortunately, that's what hunting meetings, a lot of them have dissolved into. We need to talk about how we can be politically active because I don't want to say asleep at the wheel because, it's not fair because both parties have completely disowned us. But, if we don't look out for ourselves, no one's going to look out for us. And that was kind of where the party came from because we could see the writing on the wall, The Premier of New South Wales said that he was going to come for it and it was just a matter of time and then bang, it happened.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I completely agree. My politics really haven't changed. I just found that the parties kind of left me behind type thing, or maybe I'm not sure if left me behind, but they left me, so you kind of felt a little bit of drift, and that's something we've focused really heavily on talking, in the podcast about. And we were even discussing this last podcast with Tom from SSAA, in that so much that, in a way, because of the political system in Australia, every party is going to provide some level of healthcare. It might be different level. It's on the edges, but the 80% is you're going to have no party's going to say, okay, we're getting rid of healthcare. No party's going to say we're getting rid of infrastructure. No party's going to say we're not going to defend. We're not going to fund defence. So there's a great many things that happen at a political level that you basically kind of saying, well, do you want a cheese sandwich or do you want a Vegemite sandwich type thing?
Yep.
And things like hunting I actually think they become more important. They become more relevant to me because the big things are taken care of. I'm picking flavours. When I pick a political party, I'm picking flavours. But the things that are really important to me, like hunting, that's now that rises as, okay, no one's supporting this, so I need to actually think about this from a point of view. And of course, your parties like yourself support it, wholeheartedly. But for a great many people, there isn't that option. And I mean, for instance, I live in the last green seat in Australia.
Wow.
That's it, federally. But we like to say we've got her up in in an exclusion zone, looking in a native environment, the last thylacine, you're looking after, because it's rare now. We've got to look after it. It's a rare creature.
Yeah.
So.
Let's hope she is the last of that species.
Well, she's a rare creature, so maybe we shouldn't let it go altogether. We've got to keep it's got to keep. We don't want it extinct, but so that big voting becomes really important, and so asking those questions become, they don't go from, this is how I used to vote. No, I'm in a situation where neither party particularly supports me. You might say that some support you better than others, but again, that's quite questionable. And that seems to change on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the bill, because that's the big thing. And again, I really appreciate you talking about, the childhood around politics and hunting. So for you as a hunter, where do you sit as a hunter? Are you getting in? Are you a specialist hunter now? Are you a generalist? How do you like to see yourself as a hunter?
So I've always been someone that likes to make as many friends as I can and as many places as I can. I'm probably guilty of having too many friendship groups, which is just, I don't know what it is, but I always see little opportunities everywhere. So likewise with hunting. So I always want to make new connections and new networks with people. So hopefully I can hunt with them. Like I actually, when I was first with my now wife, when she was my girlfriend, she's from New Zealand, and I went back to New Zealand and I met her grandparents for the first time in the North Island in Masterton, and and there's a mountain range behind Masterton, the Ruahines. And when I first met her grandfather, he shook my hand and said, "Come with me." And he took me into the garage, and he was never a trophy hunter, but he was a hunter his entire life. And he told me the story and blah, 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 blah. And he'd retired then. He was in his 80s, and he gave me the biggest chamois head you've ever seen in your life.
Okay.
Honestly, it was like was like just up and down. It was at least 10 inches. And then it must have been a 12-inch sham. I've never seen one that big, like thicker than my thumbs and enormous. And he said, I don't keep trophies, mate, but a mate of mine got this and he didn't want it. So he gave it to me and I put it on a plaque and he gave it to me. And I'm like, holy hell. And then, he showed me around his house and then we spent the whole weekend, just me and him, just going through his photo albums over hunting. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, this is the family that I want to be in. Yeah, this is the one. And then right before he died, he actually came across to my wedding. He died during COVID, so he couldn't get to their funeral, unfortunately, because that was the madness, of course. But he got me onto a mate of his, because over there it's always, I know Bob who knows so and so who can sort you out here. So because I really, really, really wanted to shoot a good free range seeker in the North Island.
Okay.
I didn't want to go and pay the money. I thought I could get a nice one through connections, through family, friends, whatever. That was how I wanted to do it in the North Island, which is just about impossible. But he got me a connection and he hooked me up with someone and he was this fencing guy from blah, blah, blah. Spoke to him. This bloke doesn't even use a phone. I had to call him through his wife and everything was lined up. I was going to come over for a couple of nights and go and shoot a seeker because all the locals have all their seeker blocks locked up so no one can shoot it. And I'm like, great, this is all lined up. We weren't married then, so it was all fine. I travel over there, no problems. It was all good to go. And then bloody COVID happened and it was all over. So that was the end of that trip. So that's just one example of like networks that I like to cultivate. Like I always want to do those interesting things. So I'm definitely not a specialist hunter. I definitely say I'm a deer hunter primarily because right now in my life where I am, my wife lets me do more hunting if I bring food back. And I brought goat back in the past and she wasn't happy.
Oh, okay.
I brought back some pretty ropey goats. But I brought back pigs in the past and she wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. But every time I bring back venison, she's happy. And she grew up in a household where they would go fishing, the entire summer holidays and they'd be, and her grandfather would be white baiting. And if you got some venison or something, they'd be eating venison. So as long as we're eating it, she's happy. And I'm very lucky that I have a young family and they all eat venison.
Oh, okay.
My little son came with me on a trip. He's 4. And, we've been talking about deer the whole time. There's deer in the house. We make sausages at home together and they eat them. But like we do schnitzels all the time and they eat them. So they love venison. And he was there when I shot this deer and it was the best. It was the best day. He was super into it. He had his little kid's camera taking the photos of all the meat when I hung it up and everything. And then we got home. What are we going to do with it? So at the moment it's deer. But having said that, I've already shot a lot of deer. So, I haven't shot all the species I like. So if we're drilling down into deer, I guess I haven't shot a decent rooster stag. I haven't shot a sambar stag and I haven't shot a chital stag. So they're the main 3 that I want. And I haven't shot a hoggy stand, a hoggy stag. I could have shot hinds of all of those species, but I wasn't interested. Sorry, I don't count them. I've got a couple of them, but I don't count them. So yeah, I guess you'd say it's that. But like I also was very much lucky enough to grow up when I was 16 and we were preparing for our Canada trip. My dad had bought us these 300 Win Mags because he said, we're going to shoot these 180 grain Woodleys at these elk. So let's go and practice on some pigs. So he had an old relationship with Max Davidson from Davidson's Arnhem Land Safaris back then. And we managed to go up into Arnhem Land a few times and just blasting pigs up there. And that's, if you've ever shot pigs in the Northern Territory, it's just a bloody bonanza.
We did that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. And it's unreal. And they're everywhere. Every corner you turn, there's more pigs. They're all big. They're all tusky. It's just wild and unreal up there. So that really scratched my itch as a kid shooting them. And then, that's
a territory. That's out of the territory. That's a small one out of the territory.
I was just going to say, I've seen some absolute monsters there.
There's that buffalo. There's a monster near it. It's just off camera, and it was the biggest one I've got so far. Only had one tooth though.
That's the buffalo you just shot?
No, that's not. That's last year's buffalo. That one.
Okay. Public land?
No, territory, cattle station.
Okay.
But self-guided.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, just look, I'm kind of into everything. Like I understand the value of the, managing invasive species now. So I'm definitely a person that has bought into that. Like in preparation for this bill, I went and invested in a 200 odd litre chest freezer so we can really start pulling the trigger on stuff so we don't start wasting any meat. But I would say primarily deer. I think there's something about watching a watching a deer in the bush in the morning mist or coming out in the afternoon, and you just see that flash of tines that it just gets you going, man. It just gets you going.
Yep.
Whereas, I've walked up on a million mobs of pigs. I've walked up on a million mobs of goats. I've sat around blackberry and shot a million rabbits. I've whistled in a bunch of foxes, but nothing gets me going like seeing those stags step out, sometimes on last light and you've got it right. And what you thought was going to happen happened. And it was, that really gets me going.
It's pretty hard to not be moved by a roaring red.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's quite primordial. That is that I think that triggers something way back in the memory banks. That one.
Yeah. And sometimes when it vibrates through your body and stuff, you're like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
There's something that does something. There's something gets turned on that has been dormant for a long time when that happens. Yeah,
a little bit of Neanderthal DNA, I think.
Yeah, there's something in there. There's something in there that kind of goes, hang on. As like when I always said with there was always a difference with my Labrador when I fed him game meat.
Yep.
He acted differently.
It
made him more territorial, There's something just fired in him, and he knew the difference. Yeah, we're the same. We bought a 300-litre freezer some time ago, and at the moment there's buffalo, red, yellow, goat, and Spanish mackerel in there at the moment.
Yeah, so. Wow. How does the buffalo go?
It's not bad for city living.
Yeah, not bad. How does the buffalo go?
Look, interestingly, the buffalo is particularly mild. So because I made 48 buffalo burgers,
nice.
Just made them up, and we had our first run at them on Saturday night. So my family eats game meat, and I've got into biltong this year, so I bought a biltong machine, and I've got 1.5 kilos buffalo to make into biltong.
You got a chamber?
Yeah, I bought one of those little biltong boxes. 5 days, and you got biltong because we were making it for the boys for school, so they could take meat to school without obviously issues around refrigeration in Queensland summertime heat. So we were doing biltong. So I've got another batch coming up, but I kind of went a little bit more adventurous on the spices this time with the buffalo, because the last one was actually really mild, and it was interesting because we kind of share the meat. We got 3 buffalo and we share the meat, and when I was processing it, there was some really soft pink to dark red from cow to bull type thing. Yeah. So it was quite mild. So I'm sausages next. That's my next. I've got the machine. I'm ready to go. I bought some pig fat, and I've got the casings. Sausages are next on the menu.
You got to get into the do you have a smoker?
No.
Okay. You can get a real cheap smoker, and you just do like those semi-cooked sausages, and you can eat them like cabanossi. Bloody beautiful. Yeah. Bloody beautiful. Just a little bit of smoke flavor in them, all the difference.
Yeah, so that's it. So I've decided sausages next, and I'm expanding the repertoire on that one.
Share it with no one. Share it with no one. Oh, that much meat, giving it away.
Yeah, the interesting. You were talking about the perception of hunting as your kid. My eldest is 100% committed to hunting. Awesome. We actually had to have a rule when he was younger that he could only wear one piece of camo out at once, because he would literally, and he still does it. He wears, he's got a Hellenic hunter's beanie. He still wears it in, summertime and springtime in Queensland. So, and he's got his license. He's got his junior license. We're actually going to range on Friday. So he's 100% committed to it. But his mates, and he's a very popular kid at school, was a school vice captain in his primary school and things like that. And he has got no problem talking about hunting. I actually sometimes say, mate, I have to say, come on, mate, slow down a little bit, Yeah. And but it's the food that brings his mates around.
Yeah.
They come around. The biltong. They go, oh, what's that? And he goes, it's biltong my dad made from deer. And they kind of go, deer? What is it? And he tells them about it, and they kind of go, ooh. And then they have a biltong, and they go, can we have some more? So they come around and ask for biltong.
And I'm going to get into that because my son right now is all about jerky. He's only 4, but he's all about jerky.
Yeah.
And I used to make quite a bit, and then recently I fell away because I think I lost the dehydrator or something. But I always used you know Jason Spencer from Hunt Catch Cook.
Yep, I know the name.
So I have a couple of his cookbooks, and his kangaroo jerky recipes great. It's spot on. So
I've been doing biltong, the full, so 5 days.
Yep.
You know,
but
20 degree.
Through my head, I reckon biltong twist on that, I think will go well.
20 degree heat. It's very low setting, fan running concept. All you do is the particular unit I've got's got a 24-hour timer, so you just got to make sure that you turn it over at 7 a.m. in the morning, and so you just keep an eye on it.
So it doesn't hang; it sits.
It does. No, it hangs, but the timer is only 24 hours. So you got to you make sure you set it like at 7 a.m. so the next morning when you can reset it. And what I generally do is hang the bigger, thicker pieces at the back, and I work rather than I'll use a lot of meat, and so when I've got even small bits, I'll still make that into biltong and put that in the front. So what happens then is like day 3, the small stuff's ready, day 4, and then day 5. So the boys are kind of like, they're kind of snacking as they go type thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's annoying. Yeah. Just stay away. Wait till it's ready.
That's it. My wife she'll actually cut it up and hide it.
Yeah. Good.
Because it was supposed to be for lunch. It was
school lunch, mates, because all those young boys become bottomless pits and they just eat all your good meat.
Mate, I've got 2 at the moment. Moment.
Yeah. All right. So you already know.
Sure. So look, let's get into the current. So the bill.
Yes.
We've been talking about it a lot. And unfortunately, we only see anything that appears in anything that you might describe as the standard media is generally pretty negative.
Yep.
And the rest is socials. So it's hard to track, and there seemed to be a lot of enthusiasm, and then that enthusiasm got squashed. And so if you could, and look, and by the time we release this, there's every chance that things have changed. But as of the 29th of September, where are we?
So when I spoke to you last, so the bill started in the 28th of May. It was introduced to the House. So just to get into technical jargon or parliamentary jargon, the bill got to its second read, and it had a debate. Now, in the midst of that second read debate, because in the upper house they can kind of do what they want, and in the upper house in New South Wales, which is so Canberra copies off us. We have a lower house and an upper house, similar in New South Wales, but they call them Legislative Assembly, Legislative Council. So if a bill starts in the upper house that's where you have all the Senate inquiries you see in Canberra, all the budget estimates in Canberra. They have all that in New South Wales as well. So all the inquiries, when a bill comes to the upper house, they refer those things to inquiries if needed, because the upper house can pretty much do what it wants. So in the midst of that second read debate, the bill was referred to an inquiry. Now, in the debate that was going on, both sides, the opposition and the government, said they both supported the bill. It was the usual suspects who you can imagine, Animal Justice and the Greens, the basically radical ideologues that were against it. And what they did was, it was very, very cheeky. But when they were having that second read debate, someone, we don't know who, but we suspect we know who it is, being the Animal Justice and Greens, invited up the Alana and Madeline Foundation, which is Walter Mikac, the father of those 2 girls who tragically were murdered at Port Arthur, along with his wife. So Walter was invited up, and he was door knocking all over Macquarie Street, all the Liberal MPs telling them this bill is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to our gun laws. Now, Liberals being Liberals, because none of that was true, of course. None of this bill, if this bill went through tomorrow completely unchanged, with no amendments, it does not amend the Firearms Act at all. So it's a complete lie. But we were told that this was going to be, we heard all that. We can get into that later. But so he knocked on all the doors, and Liberals being Liberals, they wet the bed and they flipped. The Nationals went with them, and it came down to the crossbench to decide if this was going to go to an inquiry or not, or the second reading would finish. So there was one casting vote, basically, that sent it to the inquiry, and that was our mate from the Libertarians. So good on him. He wants wins for shooters, and he almost killed the bill by sending it to the inquiry. So it went to an inquiry, which was right after I spoke to you. We're talking to people about, so we're visiting clubs and speaking to people about writing submissions. We're also talking about it on social media. And they had a one-day hearing of the inquiry, which was frankly
Saturday. That was the Saturday in August.
It was on a Friday. It was on a Friday.
Oh, it's Friday in August. That's right.
Yeah. So, and that was so someone that was there having to talk about something as serious as what we were proposing, which is getting a conservation hunting authority up, getting some recognition, so getting our right to hunt recognised in the legislation, because that's what it was more about, a recognition of our right to hunt. Just like our people have a right to vote, that's not in our constitution. Having a right to live in a safe society, that's not in our constitution. But like the right to happiness and the right to a lovely life and the right to earn a living and the right to healthcare, they're not real rights, but we recognise them in our community.
Yeah, we might say that they're universal right.
Exactly, the right to housing, the right to accessible food, all these sorts of things. So all we're saying is we've been over here being a major chunk of the New South Wales economy. We give 1.5 billion, which rivals meat and poultry, as hunting. So we want some recognition for what we do. So that's why we put in there the right to hunt. And that turned into, these guys, they want a right to bear arms. So it was all just bullshit. Anyway, went to the inquiry, and I had to sit there on the day watching the inquiry go on, and the people that they put up on their side. So they had so-called independent environmental groups like the Invasive Species Council, who directly advise government on what to do when it comes to policy in terms of managing invasive species and all that sort of stuff. They just verbaled us and lied about us and called us every name under the sun, calling us weekend warriors when we're major contributors to the economy. And we don't take anything from the government for what we do. We pay in to do what we do. We spend our money in the New South Wales economy. We don't spend our holidays going to Bali or going to Thailand or, no offense, going to the Great Barrier Reef. We spend it in New South Wales, in the regions. We keep our money in New South Wales, and we want a bit of recognition for that. We were called every name under the sun, and we were the worst people in the world for doing this. And they brought the Gun Control Australia and the Alana and Madeline Foundation people there, and they called us scary and we make society less safe. They had DV New South Wales saying that because there's a correlation between firearm ownership and domestic violence, therefore this legislation was going to lead to more domestic violence. That has absolutely nothing to do with law-abiding people, and it's not fair to tarnish people like that. Imagine they spoke that way about people of certain racial demographics. There'd be uproar.
Imagine they spoke about that about car owners.
There'd be uproar. So, and then of course we had the crazies come on at the end. That we famously called them the crazy cat ladies. So we had to get serious testimony from the RSPCA. What the hell do they have to do with hunting? From Four Paws, some animal justice place, the Cat Protection Society, and some other animal defenders office. So we had to sit in an inquiry about managing feral animals on public land and encouraging citizens to do that and have a citizen solution. And we had to listen to those people who said they don't believe animals should be killed under any circumstances unless it's a last resort. So we're so serious, and we had to sit with those absolute joke of a bunch of witnesses that showed up and verbaled us and spoke that about it. So you can tell how cranky I was about it. So the inquiry finished. The actual report was handed down, and then now it's ready to go back for its second read so it's sitting on the slate there at Parliament. It's just waiting to get put back in the House, and the second read of the bill will start again. We got confirmation that it needs to be second read again. So the government, that you might have seen there was a bit of fake news out there, because the week after the report came back, there was the next sitting week in Parliament. There was a full-page ad in the Daily Telegraph. Saying this is the worst thing to ever happen again. Look, even before that, they even rolled out John Howard, who, funnily enough, just a side note, they had him on the ABC because we did all kinds of media about it. And as you said, we got nothing but a bad run, nothing but lies. Every single time we tried to tell the truth, they just cut us off or took us off the air, or told us when they were filming the news piece that this is a hit piece and we're going to chop this up. So we knew what was coming. They even rolled out Johnny Howard on the ABC, and he's getting on these days, Johnny. So the ABC guy just let him talk. Under normal circumstances, the ABC hate his guts, of course, but when it comes to this, because all of a sudden they've turned this hunting bill into a regressive watering down gun laws thing. Again, nothing to do with the Firearms Act, but they let Johnny talk. And the point of contention at that time was the right to hunt, that it's us Trojan horsing in a right to bear arms. And they let Johnny talk. And twice in the interview, he said, I think people have a right to hunt. I respect that. He said it twice. So the exact context that we're talking about people having a right to hunt, he said he respects that right. So their number one flagship person out front was Johnny Howard, and he agrees with us. So it just proves that they were purposely misleading and lying to us about it the whole time. And it was a complete beat up, and they knew exactly where we were coming from, but they just can't give us any ground, any quarter, whatever you want to call it. They just can't do it, because ever since they took the Game Council off us, our statutory authority, we haven't had another one, and we haven't had that recognition or that promotion. And that's what we want. Victoria has that. New Zealand has that. That's all we want, is something similar. We can have recognition and promotion of what we do, and just, again, recognition that something we do is valid, something that we do is okay, something that we do is just fine. That's your culture. That's what you do, and we're not going to stitch you up for it. But the Greens have been basically running through their NGOs. They've been running environmental policy and invasive species policy straight into government through these NGOs. So that's the only advice they've been getting. So we're there to upset that paradigm, and they don't like it. So they have to do everything they can to stop us.
That is a very interesting point you make, because often there's this is something that's always crossed my mind. If you look at where the money is,
yes,
firstly, if you look where the cost is, in managing feral species, the government, it's a sunk loss. There's no way you make money off pigs, and it's a sunk loss. It's just it's a cost that has no return. Yeah. If you're a farmer or a property owner, it's kind of this double whammy, because not only do you suffer from, you've got to pay from it, but you've got to pay from profits, and these things actually eat into profit. So you've got this kind of double for.
Yep.
Then you've got the recreational hunter who pays all the way through. You pay all the way through. All the way through. And then, strange enough, there's people whose job it is, organisations out there whose existence are based on feral species and getting paid for that.
Yep.
They actually get paid to be giving advice about feral species. So there's only a very small group of people who actually make any money off this stuff. And it makes you wonder, why they're so adamant about not changing the way things are controlled.
Well, when I talked about the paradigm, and you talk about, it makes you wonder, they basically run roughshod on government policy when it comes to this stuff, because there is no pro-hunting NGOs. There is no pro-hunting organizations advising government on how to manage these things and saying hunting is an option. So they have all the advice, they have all the science on their side, but we don't have that on our side. As we know, the smoking companies got all this science done and all this advice done that smoking was good for your health. So we know that science can do whatever you want, right? We know that. So just because we don't have it, now that we've come along, and as you say, government, there's no money to be made. So at the moment, they're saying drop 1080 and shoot them in helicopters, and that's how we're going to manage the private land and the public land, except for the state forests, right? So we come along and say, no, we can be a solution here for private and public land. So if we have any kind of success at doing what we say that we think we'll have success in, then people are going to stop listening to those other NGOs from the greenie side, and they're going to start listening to us. So they're all going to lose face as well. So the people that say they're in there and their best interest is in managing invasive species, it's clearly not, because they just got the apple cart, and we're here to upset the apple cart. Even though many of the interviews that we've done around the bill, we sat there in the 2GB studio with Ben Fordham. He's just some literally a disc jockey from the city, there with the Invasive Species Council and Robert Borsak Sr., and he's saying, shouldn't you guys be on the same page?
Yeah, that was a very interesting observation by someone who just said, well, it sounds like you guys should be working hand in glove.
Yep, and we should. And they've had to backtrack quite a bit, saying, well, we don't oppose ground shooting, but the way they talk about it in person, they just absolutely verbal us. So that's not true. They're ideologues, and they're doing whatever they can. And interestingly enough, you might have seen on our social media, we had a video with Robert Senior sitting there. We did a little bit of digging into the Invasive Species Council just to zero in on them for a moment, and they their ABN is listed to an address in Carlton, Victoria, in an office building called the Green Building. And as we know, the Invasive Species Council has a CEO who used to work for the Greens in Parliament House. He was a Green staffer, now working for the Invasive Species Council, out of an office in the Green Building. And in this green building, there were half a dozen at least other environmental groups, nature groups. They were all NGOs who advise government. Now, in the same building, there were two offices. One of them was listed for the Victorian Greens leader in the upper house and the Victorian Greens leader in the lower house. So these people share an office with literally the political Greens in Victoria as their head office, and yet they're the ones giving independent advice to government. Yeah, sure. So that's the world that we're living in. That's the apple cart that we're upturning, and they don't like it. They really don't like it. And the government can't just keep throwing money because so despite what they say or what they want to do, they can't control the weather. And we've gone into another wet cycle, and the animal numbers are up.
And we've got a prediction that we've got another one coming.
Yep. And these people are big government people. So that's the other side of this that people aren't seeing. We're offering not a big government solution. We're offering the people bringing a solution, whereas these guys ideologically have a big government solution. So they want to keep they want to keep asking for hundreds of millions of dollars for helicopter shoots, which are temporary. They're not long-term. And then as soon as the numbers bounce back, they need to go back and shoot some more. So every time they advocate for their solution, it's costing tens and tens of millions of dollars. And I can tell you right now, governments don't want to spend it on that. If there's a citizen solution, a cheap solution that can do it, like the conservation hunting bill, they're open to it. So the fact that this government's been pragmatic about it and there's been a bit of common sense, it's been a breath of bloody fresh air.
Well, it's an interesting thing because if I said to you, is a local four-wheel drive club, is it a good idea that they organise, a clean up a beach weekend, we would say, what a fantastic idea. Great.
Yep.
We'd carry them on our shoulders. We would say, or the men's shed, you say, okay, a group of people get together and help each other out and solve an issue or support each other.
Yeah.
There's all these things that we do as volunteers, either continuously, like something like Surf Lifesaving, or something much smaller where a group decides to clean up a creek or, take ownership of a bit of timber or something like that and do a citizen activity. We can't help but, keep praising how great that is. It is but in this case, citizen bad.
Yep.
Over there, citizen good.
Yep.
Is over there citizen good, over here citizen bad. That it's one of those really, the quandaries of it. The other one that always gets me is that, and I've written about this. Depending on your argument, I'm either the Grim Reaper or I'm the Stork. So I'm either responsible for the destruction of species, or I'm responsible for the spread of species, depending on how you want to belt me over the head today. So either, stop killing stuff, you're going to drive things in extinction, or stop hunting because your hunting is spreading feral animals.
Well, yeah.
And if you think about it, if that was the case, then we would actually say shoot more ducks because it'll help their population increase.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, back to what you were saying, if that's the logic that what we're doing, citizens going out and doing things isn't making a difference, then I look forward to all these people ragging on Clean Up Australia Day as a waste of time.
Well, that's right. Or the men's shed.
Yeah.
Or any number of other citizen-led activities that we actually, praise and say these are the models of being a good citizen.
It's also a very Australian thing to do, is just step out. So that's what we want to do. And
volunteering at the local football club or something like that.
Exactly. They say, what do you get out of it? What's the point? It's like, because I like it and I want to help. What's wrong with that?
That's right. You're not going to say, don't clean up the beach because it's not part of a strategic plan to deal with waste. You're going to say, mate, go for it.
And that's that old story about, the old fella throwing starfish back in the water. They're all washed up on the beach and some kid walks along, sees all the starfish on the beach and the old fella's throwing them in and the kid says, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm throwing these back in the water because when the sun gets too high, they dry out and they die. And he says, but you can't clean up all these. Why are you wasting your time? He goes, he says, surely it doesn't matter because all these starfish are going to die. And the old man's with the starfish he's holding, he throws in the water, goes, well, it matters to this one, and throws it back in.
That's right.
Because if all that matters is that everything's sorted all the time, then you'll never get anything done. But to be frank, that's not the Australian way.
No, I struggle with that one all the time. Thanks for the update on the bill. And I think also more of a point to update into the politics behind it. It's very difficult to kind of understand the process from afar. So very much appreciate that. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's look to the future.
Well, just
What's
to finish
your
on the
vision
bill.
of the future here? Okay.
Just to finish on the bill. So the bill's sitting on the slate, ready to go back in. We're looking to get it back in the House in October. So they're not sitting now for a few weeks, but then October is when we're looking to do it. So the bill be back. Keep an eye on everything because we'll be crowing about it.
That's it. So, listeners, October, which technically is only a couple of days away.
Yeah. So probably this. I think it's the 3rd and the 4th week of October.
That's when Parliament resumes in New South Wales.
Or maybe it's the 2nd. That's when Parliament resumes for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. To the future. What do you see? What do you think? What? I know our challenges, but what's our opportunities?
What's our opportunities? Well, we all know that when we had, Brian Boyle again, just to drop his name for the 10th time, when he was CEO of the Game Council back then, and we got that public land opened up, we saw an exponential growth in hunting.
Mm-hmm.
We saw lots of clubs started swelling, lots of new clubs opened up. Like I know the Hellenic Hunters, they talk about how their club was a small little club.
Yeah, 1999, I think they kicked off.
Yeah, they were a small little club. And then with the public land hunting, their numbers really grew because hunting all of a sudden became more accessible. So what I'd love to see is, thousands and thousands of new clubs popping up. Like now we have social media. We also saw another bump in hunting because now, unfortunately for the international hunters, the prices have gone up, skyrocketed. But for Australia, with the weather, we have so many more opportunities. And with the weather, we have so many more animals now. Like coming out of COVID, the animals weren't touched for a couple of years. And then, just on the fallow deer block that I was on, I had the best run of in 2023 that I'll ever have in my entire life because the numbers were ridiculous and the feed was amazing. So they were everywhere. So that's never going to go away. And it doesn't matter how much they convince the government to spend on choppers and poisons, that's never going to go away. It's always going to be a bonanza in New South Wales. We still have five of the 6 deer species. We have everything else except buffalo and bantang. And there are some camels out there as well. So we have the lot. So with a bit of promotion, just imagine how good we can be. So I talked about we have $1.5 billion. And that's old numbers. That's from 3 or 4 years ago that I'm not sure exactly which department released that, but that was what our industry's worth. So they talk about when they're all this beat up about what we're doing, saying we want a government funded propaganda unit. It's like, well, if we're tipping $1.5 billion into the economy, which rivals meat and poultry, every time you walk past the butcher, there's a sign up there saying put a bit of pork on your fork or, eat local eggs, all these sorts of things. And what do we get? Nothing. No recognition, no promotion. So if we were promoting hunting again, just imagine how big our culture could be, our pastime could be, our recreation could be. Just imagine. So for the future, I see, more and more young people getting into it. I think now we have things like what you guys are doing, how you're having conversations about hunting all the time and people are talking a lot more. And we're not just getting the media perception of what hunting is. We're getting the truth of what hunting is. We're getting, everyone's got a phone in their hand. Guys like, what's his name? Adam Greentree. Every single hunt he goes on, God, it must be annoying to hunt with him because he's got his phone in his hand all the time. But every single step of his hunt, he's doing it. People can watch the hunting and then they want to go out and do that sort of stuff. I love that. And, now that you guys go out and you can always just pop a mic on your cap and boom, you're online and you can, document what you guys are doing. So the future is really, really bright for us. Our climate's amazing. We have, sorry again, Queensland, we have all the great animals here and we have all the opportunities now. And if we get this Conservation Hunting Authority up, that'll mean that we can now start bringing back the divide that has been put in there since the Game Council left of private landowners and hunters. Because because one of our goals will be bringing those people together again. We are asking for a bounty system as well. It's not part of the bill, but the government has made very good noises about supporting bounty programs, which means people are not going to walk past. Sorry, and this is for cats and foxes and dogs and pigs. That'll mean people are less likely to walk past those animals. They're going to take out those animals. Now, you can never shoot too many cats and pigs. Like, you'll never really eradicate those, let's be honest. So that's going to mean we're going to start bringing those private landowners and hunters together again. more than what they are now. So can you imagine in a world where we all get on, like a world, a world like, what place can I think of that's nearby? Like New Zealand, where private hunters, there's lots of public land hunting, and hunters aren't a dirty word over there because they know each other and they all work together. So if we can start doing those sorts of things and start getting rid of the noise, the lies, the disparaging that's done about us, and we start getting, I don't even want to say respect, but just, recognition, understanding, that would be lovely, because we would just be up and up, man. Like, it would be great for everyone. So
I totally agree. I'm cautiously optimistic for the future. I'm heavily invested in the future because I've got sons and who hunt, so I'm invested in the future. And what I've noticed, I've been writing since 2008. And it's worth acknowledging that I wouldn't have a hunting career without the work of Robert Borsak Senior and Shooters of Fishers and Farmers Project, because most of my hunting career has been public land hunting in New South Wales. That's the reality of it. The writing, the over 170 articles. I don't know what the percentage is, but they're heavily weighted to public land hunting. So it's a reality. It's been the opportunity that's provided me personally is fantastic, and the Hunters Campfire is an extension of that. So it's worth acknowledging that. And I'm invested in the future. What I've noticed is that there's been a change in what a hunter is. The people that we talk to, and we talk to people all the time, and got a message a couple of days ago from a guy called Jake who reached out to us and said he wanted to hunt the pilliga. We gave him some advice, showed him some videos, and he's come back and said, I've had success. Awesome. We've had a guy send us a photo of his son who took his first public land animal with a bow. And, he literally said, without you guys, we wouldn't be doing this as a family. That's just, that. But the thing is, those people are invested in hunting for the sake of hunting. It's a lifestyle choice to them. And just like you made fun of the guys on the bikes with the Lycra, the interesting things about the guys with the $30,000 carbon fiber bikes and the $5,000 worth of Lycra is they're invested in it, and they actually make noise when that investment's challenged. And I think as hunters, we should very much think about it the same way. There's a lot of money in my gun safe. And, it's an investment that I've made over time, and I want to protect it. I don't want it to go away. So, being political is a necessity because I'm protecting my investment.
And look, people don't like to get political, but it's not, you don't want to find the politics. Guys, the politics has already found us. We're already politicized. It's just
I think that's a very good point. You might not like politics, but politics certainly doesn't like you.
Look, there's two kinds of people in this world when it comes to politics. There's people who want to be left alone, and then there's the people that won't leave them the bloody hell alone. So unfortunately, we want to be left alone, but they don't want to leave us alone.
Yeah, so I think that's a very nice way of putting it. We do not have the luxury of being left alone.
And we don't have the same kind of just demographic climate that a place like New Zealand has, where there's still a semi-rural country. So there's a lot of common sense there. Like they had their massacre. They didn't ban all the semi-autos. They just banned the guns that happened, that were used in that area, because they still know they have a huge problem with invasive species over there. So we don't want to ruin the hunter's gig for what someone else did. So they've still got their semi-autos for hunting. But here we have more of a city-country divide. So people in the city don't understand, so they lose their mind. Like, we have pump-action shotguns are banned here, for goodness sake. They're not semi-autos. The Adler shotgun got banned, or way categorized down the end, because we have that stupid city-country divide here. So as long as people from the city, those 6 million out of the 8.5 million in New South Wales, travel out to the bush and keep doing those things and keep talking about it and keep, doing things like what the Hellenic boys do, they turn it into a very much a family club, then that's the way we're going to keep moving forward. And look, I can't lie. TV shows like Meat Eater, podcasts like Joe Rogan did a lot of the heavy lifting for us. That brought a lot of common sense into people's minds, and now they're starting to understand. But we do need to find that kind of breakthrough here in Australia. It's yet to happen. I think, but I think it will. I think it will. I don't think people need to be ashamed about being into hunting anymore, because it's not it's just not as villainized as it was when I was a kid, sort of thing.
No,
You know?
after Port Arthur, well, from 96 to 2006, I didn't own a firearm.
Yeah. Okay.
That was it. There was just I shot a bow for a while, and I played around with a few other things. But and there was just a terrible decade of tension associated with anything, and it did slowly. You know, maybe I got older, maybe what it is, but I got back in 2006.
You wanted to start eating meat again.
Well, no, it didn't stop eating meat. But I also found you made a slight reference to it. When you kind of in your 20s, you went away, and when you came back later in your 20s, you came back with a kind of new enthusiasm. That's how I came back in 2006. I came back with a new enthusiasm, and that's carried on since then. So in a way, you know, maybe the break certainly for me, the break brought a level of enthusiasm to it and a different viewpoint. Yeah. I was going to ask you, you know, about the future and more importantly, what people can do. But I think we covered it off in that last little bit there. You know, be involved because you don't have the luxury of not being involved. That's the trouble.
Yeah. Look, I can talk to you all day about the things that people don't know about, the things that we've saved. That if we weren't in the Parliament of New South Wales, because what happens in New South Wales happens to the country. But if
spoken like a true New South Wales, mate.
No, I don't mean that in a derogatory way.
What was it? Sydney or the bush, mate? That's all there is. It's Sydney or the bush.
I just mean that in a down the line way. You know, like they were going to redefine, you know, what animal life is and what sentience is and all this sort of stuff. And that would have ended hunting overnight because they would.
Well, you know, God, that would have ended the dairy industry.
Live baiting and, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Everything.
Like if we weren't around for those sorts of things, it just would have been gone. And, you know, these other, like we've been in the New South Wales, we've been in the upper house there for 30 years this year. We're celebrating our 30 years. And we've done a lot of, you know, saving things for hunters, saving things for shooters. And it's not just for them, but shooters, fishers, and, you know, and the people in the bush. They're our main concern because they're the ones that keep getting left behind. They're the ones that get left behind by the majors because we have this special interest. And that's why we've lasted so long, because it's our bread and butter. And if we go away and a major party, if people don't support us and a major party takes over, you know, all these parties that want to be, because they all want to run the country, right? Take your pick. They all want to be the government. All the leaders of their parties want to be prime minister or premier. They'll take your votes from shooting now or from fishing now or from whatever else that niche thing might be. But then as soon as a bigger issue comes along, they'll drop you like a hot stone because you don't matter anymore. At best, you're a periphery portfolio to them. And if you're not complaining all the time, then they won't even listen to you, because the next one is who's complaining louder about something else like childcare or healthcare or law and order or something else. You get lost in the wash. You come absolutely last. But we're there. This is our bread and butter. This is what we do. This is why we're there. My goodness, my father hasn't made any more friends doing this. He's definitely made more enemies of it, but he's in it for the culture, you know? So, and that's kind of why I, you know, wanted to get involved as well, because I can see the writing on the wall, and I had a front row seat to see the writing on the wall that if I'm not involved as well, then it all goes away. So, you know, I'm sure you'll do it with your kids, but if you're asleep at the wheel with this thing, if you think someone else is going to sort it out, it's going to go away in a generation. Like I sat around many party meetings, and we were the only father-son group in the room, and it didn't make me upset, it didn't make me angry, but it made me disappointed. I'm like, why haven't you guys got your family here? Why aren't your family, like, no one's going to know as much, no one can teach your kid as much about what we're doing than you, whoever that member may be. You need to be bringing your kids here. You need to be getting them into this. You need to be training them, brainwashing them, whatever you want to call it. You need to get them in the culture. You need to get them knees deep, because if they're not, it's going to go away. And like I drifted away in my 20s, but I drifted back. Luckily, you know, things were okay back then. But if you're over 30 and you're resting on your laurels with hunting, you just can't do that. You just can't do that. You've got to join the fight.
Yeah, 100% agree. You've got to make this something that's important to you, and in terms of politically, it can be important to you personally, but you've got to actually make this important to you politically, because it's worth protecting. It's worth being part of
your
it.
MPs. It's letting them know that you're in their electorate, and you're someone who supports this bill, and you're someone that puts your money where your mouth is. you spend your money in the regional economy in New South Wales, wherever you live, and you want to let them know this is something they should be supporting, and that is basically the next step you can do. If this gets through the upper house, it'll go to the lower house, and that's where you get to get right up your local MP and let them know, especially the Nationals, because they're the number one lazy ones with all this stuff. They should all know better, but God, they just talk about asleep at the wheel.
Look, this was supposed to be half an hour, and that was like 40 minutes ago. We passed half an hour 40 minutes ago, so we're at an hour and 10.
Sorry, mate.
So we probably, the idea was this was be a segment of a longer podcast. It's going to be a very long podcast when we finally put this together.
It'll be worth listening to, I'm sure.
Robert, thanks very much for your time and more importantly, your information and enthusiasm. Really appreciate it. It was great to meet you in face to face down there at the Hellenics. That was a funny evening. They fed us like, we only came from, it's like we only drove for a day. It's like they fed us, we'd been driving for a week type thing.
Well, great,
and
mate.
they looked after us. It was a fantastic, it really was an eye-opening in a really a wonderful way how they, they embraced us and we spent the weekend with them. Frank, who was a listener and he hunted with us in the Territory, he's just posted he met a guy there called Nick and they're off chasing the tuna that are currently running off New South Wales. Awesome. So that, that connectivity between everyone was so good. Yeah, it was interesting, and doing a little bit of research and thinking about stuff. We've spoken to your father.
Yep.
And we've also spoken to Mark Madaziak as well. But there was one thing that popped in my memory today was some years ago, there was this ABC or maybe it was SBS where they got two completely different people.
Yeah.
And
look, the enemy.
And the interesting thing was the two people in it, I don't remember them, but I do remember there was this one scene where this woman, and God bless her, she had a heart in the right place. Maybe the gears weren't meshing at the high end, but she had and they're on a farm somewhere, and the conversation was they were going to go hunting or something like that, and she was really kind of agitated about it. And then the guy, and I can't even remember who the guy was. Was he the singer?
Steve Lee. I Like Guns. That was him.
Yeah, I can't even remember him.
Yep.
But he said something, I've got a guest coming. And she said, who was it? And he said, Robert Borsak. And there's a meme of it, actually, of her face. He just kind of went like,
I'll tell you a funny story.
It's like Satan's coming to town, It was just...
I'll tell you a funny story. I was living in Newtown at the time, and if you know Sydney, Newtown is the green seat of Newtown, right?
Yeah.
When I got rezoned, it was greens again. I was living in a share house in Newtown, and that's when the show was on. And Dad told me he went and filmed the show, but he didn't tell me anything because, he's a man of few words at the best of time. And then when I saw it was coming on, I'm watching it with my housemates there in Newtown, and I'd already pre-watched it because I was really worried, but it was coming on. So I think I watched it online, and then I watched it when it aired on SBS that night with my roommates. And I did something really funny because I knew the scene was coming up when he said, it's Robert Borsak, and this one was like, Robert. I think the line was, Robert Borsak is the devil. Right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And then he's coming off because Steve Lee had this big tour bus because he's a musician and he has a band. He had that famous song, I Like Guns. And Dad comes off the bus, and I put on my phone, I put the Darth Vader theme, the dun, 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 as he's coming off the bus, and it fit perfectly. It was so funny.
Yeah, I read that.
Was like, that's my dad. Dun, 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 as he's coming off the bus. It was great.
Yeah, I remember that.
And what was even better was on that trip, he shot two pigs with one shot, and they were trying to explain to the woman, Steve's son was trying to explain how cool it was that he shot two pigs with one shot, and this poor woman was horrified that they were even hunting.
Yeah,
that's actually awesome that he got two in one shot. That's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, right? And she's like, no, it's terrible. Yeah, it's great.
That's what I mean. The whole thing was pretty, not particularly memorable, but that part was just hilariously memorable. Where she goes,
Robert Borsak
is the devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mate, if I can just give a plug as well. So
go ahead,
I remember
go for it.
After talking to you, you guys inspired us. So me and Mark Benaziak, we have our own little podcast called the Team SFF Show. So we've just got that started. We use a lot of the clips for our social media. Well, we'd love to have you guys come and sit down with us at the HQ and have a chat. That'd be awesome. We recently had a sit down with Mike Atkinson. He was Outback Mike. He was the runner up on season 1 of Alone. He's an outdoor survivalist guy, and it was funny at the start of the conversation. He said, a lot of my supporters probably wouldn't like me talking to you, but you should have seen the common ground that we had with someone like him, with that survivalist, like a true outdoorsman. Like, honestly, I feel like an absolute Nancy boy compared to him, like the stuff that he does, honestly. Like, you think you're a manly man, and then you meet someone like him. Holy smokes.
He's been advocating very strongly or commentating, probably a better word, about the New South Wales National Park camping. Is that correct? Is that him?
Yeah, ghost camping and things like that.
Yeah.
And he's a very good and vocal public advocate for enjoying our public land spaces. And he's kind of getting a front row seat now to what's happening with what the bureaucracy is doing.
Yeah, he made a really interesting. I saw a short thing where he said, I could camp here and it's going to cost me this much, or I could rent a house in the town that's like 3 minutes from the campground.
Yes.
And it's cheaper.
Yes. Yeah. And he's kind of saying, so is it on purpose and all that sort of stuff? And it's like, hello, now you're starting to see it. Yes, thank you. Now you're starting to understand what it's like. So we had a great conversation with him, and we've had a great conversation about the Great Koala National Park, because we don't agree on that. But we do agree on how the land should be managed and what's happening now, and the classification of a national park and those sorts of things. So yeah, that was a great conversation we had with him. That was a great podcast. So yeah, so we'd love to have you guys on. Please check us out. We're on Spotify and YouTube as well. And yeah, we're nowhere near as experienced as you guys, 130 odd podcasts and millions of viewers, but we're getting there very, very, very slowly.
Well, thank you very much for the very kind words to describe the car crash that is our podcast.
Don't say that. You're living the life.
Someone said to us, it was well said. It does feel like a campfire, and that's exactly the model we were going for. We wanted to we want it to be conversational. I don't want to do interviews. We want to have a chat.
Exactly. This didn't feel like an interview. This felt like we were chatting.
Yeah, we're just chatting.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for your time.
No worries.
Okay, we'll speak again.
See you, mate.
Rightio, that's a wrap from the team at the Hunters Campfire. We hope you had a laugh, learned something useful, or at least were a little bit entertained. And you feel a little bit more pumped up for your next hunting, shooting, or outdoor misadventure. As always, a massive thanks for the support from our friends at SSAA and Beretta Australia. Whether you're out there chasing game, telling lies to your mates around the fire, or just trying to remember where you left your boots. Stay wild, stay curious, and for the love of all things blaze, stay safe, so we can see you back around the fire next time.